We really don't get much prep for these, do we?
No.
We kind of just go.
It just happens. I just realised,
No, I just got to... All right, cool. Yeah, what did you just realise?
No, I just realised we don't actually get to sit and chat much anymore.
No.
Not about stuff we want to chat about.
I'm still waiting for our Monday catch-up.
Yeah. We used to do it like back in the day, like a little after 5 p.m. chat about everything.
Yeah.
We don't do it enough. Maybe it's because like work's going a bit too far.
It is.
Yeah.
We've been having some lately.
Some
post 6 p.m. chats.
This is nice. This is kind of fresh.
We should... Oh, yeah. Hi, welcome to Director's Debrief, episode 3. Ram's back. He's behind the camera. How's your training, buddy?
He is.
Interesting. Okay.
He's there with his little smirk.
Can we address something about Ram?
Yeah.
I've realised, right, because you pointed this out to me, that this next young generation gives zero appreciation for the capitalization of letters.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
And like he slacked me earlier, just going, "Are you ready?"
Yeah.
In like all caps. And then, shit, no, sorry. And then, I want to see your response. Oh, no, he did actually capitalize the first one. But yeah, he doesn't generally.
I think that's because, like, his keyboard or his phone automatically capitalizes things.
Did you, that second message, was it from your phone?
Which one?
The, sorry, caps lock was on.
But you know what I've realised, or I've heard from the Gen Zs?
Yeah.
They actually go onto the iPhone, settings and they switch that off. Because it's like...
What? You used to turn the settings off? Right, we're going to have the next one.
It's like, they've lost... I don't know what they're going to...
Respect for the English language.
Exactly, what language they're going to be speaking in 20 years' time, I don't want to know.
Yeah. No, do you know, the next episode, maybe we have Ram in frame here, and instead of him asking us questions, we ask him questions. Stuff like, how dare you?
All right.
No, it's good to have you back, Ram. It really is. It means I don't have to watch the camera. I had to keep my ears peeled for it. Cans cutting out on recording. So I am happy to have you back.
No, it was a smooth time last week, other than when the mic fell over.
Yeah. Was that? That was me, wasn't it? Yeah. Thanks.
You were doing a lot of things.
Didn't even let me off the hook.
That was a good take.
No, it was you, mate. You kicked it. Cool.
All right, let's get into the serious stuff.
All right, let's get stuck right in. Ram,
boom.
Got the questions for us. We said we were only going to do 2. So do you want to start off with question numero dos?
How did you first select your employees?
Poorly. Next question. No, I'm kidding.
Off the street.
Yeah. You started this process. I joined and I did some recruiting on my own. But
yeah.
How did you select employees?
It's a difficult one, really, because I'll be perfectly honest. In the early days, you're very worried about even hiring someone. You're like, how am I going to afford someone? How am I going to give them enough work? Sure. It was like, given the whole story of how we started from like just a couple of us, you're a bit concerned about that. But we had the first employee that I hired officially. I remember her. She was great, and she was here with us for a long time before she moved to Australia.
I remember. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I got to meet her for a few years.
Yeah. So really, she started from like we were her first job. We were one of her first jobs that she'd worked with. And I remember when she came in, she was just very confident and like I could see immediately that she could help me.
Sure.
And kind of take on the task. And that was really all I was looking for. Like just someone sitting next to me, and she literally did sit next to me, just taking on some of the workload and kind of easing up what I was doing. And that was all I asked for. But she turned out to be an absolute gem. And maybe she's listeing to this or not. But
I hope so.
Yeah,
I mean, we still have her on LinkedIn, right? If we put it on,
we do. We have her on a few things, yeah. But,
yeah.
So it's good. So that's how we used to really do it in the early days. There's no special formula, and certainly then you can't really be picky because you're not a company really, and it's not like you're looking for anyone, but you really are just looking for anyone who can help you out, or anyone who could help you out anywhere. Then we moved on, multiple different employees, and we started to look for certain things, certain aspects in stuff. And I don't know if you want to take over there of what do you look for when you're hiring now?
Well, actually, I want to follow up on sort of your point of how our mentality has changed, because it changed pretty recently, right? Whereby we advertised for a job, and we got such a broad range of people applying, people with 5 to 6 years worth of experience and people who had just graduated university.
Right.
A majority of the people that we shortlisted were people who had many years of experience, because that's what the industry tells you to do, get people with experience. And then one curveball, one person who hadn't even graduated yet, I don't think, at that point. And lo and behold, that's the person we ended up hiring.
Yeah.
Because I think this is a very important question that businesses might need to ask themselves is, what are you expecting from this employee? Are you expecting them to walk in and like, this is what you're missing, this is what you need to do?
Sure.
I think too many are expecting that, and that's why they go with experience.
Yeah.
And we shifted our mentality of, well, what do we need? And can we get that person there? Can we train them up in that department? And that's when you're in a niche industry like ours, that's where the value came. We were like, all right, it might cost us 3 months of salary but no return.
Yeah.
But in 3 months' time, we're going to have the best candidate rather than somebody who has sort of stuck in their old ways.
You're completely spot on. I think when we were doing that because that was a big role that we were recruiting for, because it was the start of where we were going, not just for that role, but the whole area of the business that we were developing. And you spot on in the terms, and certainly from my perspective, and I remember we were having discussions, we wanted someone who would come in and just fix things up and instantly know exactly what to do where. And I think it only came as we started to interview candidates that we realized that because of the niche industry we were in, I mean, you try explaining our business model to the average person, that it wouldn't really make sense. Yeah. But yeah, we couldn't just find someone who would come in and start doing exactly what we needed them to do. So something we realized early on is, okay, we can't quite do that. Yeah. And what we need is flexibility and agility, and someone who is just willing to learn the ways we go and then add their element to it. And I guess, recruiting the way we did worked out for us. Yeah.
And I think now more than ever, but slowly it's grown in importance who we let through the doors, who we let join our company, because we are reminded on a regular basis that we have something special. Yeah. I like to think that. Ram, what do you think of working here? Do you? Okay, cool. So he's gone. Yeah. But no, I think our team have expressed in numerous different ways that they're very happy here. They like working here. And more importantly, they like working with each other. And we take that incredibly seriously. And we get involved, yourself, me, should there be any issues, to make sure that it's a happy working team. Absolutely. But yeah, that means we look for certain qualities. You know, we've talked about introducing a culture fit aspect of the interview, having them speak to members of the team, because like we said, we can pretty much train anybody to do anything. It's just about if they're going to be happy here, because people will do their best work when they're happy. If you're looking for a return on investment, that's it. People do their best work when they're happy. I
mean, when we were recruiting certain people, they were great on paper and they were great in personality. But we did see early signs of how they would probably be great for a corporate company. And your traditional corporations that need that experience, that knowledge, and also that structure. But for our type of business, our startup, I mean, you see the number of ideas, which, the way we're going, we're in different areas now, software included. We couldn't quite have someone who was stuck in their ways.
No.
And I mean that in the most respect, because some companies need that. But for us, we needed that fresh kind of moldability.
I've heard you talk about something, and I want to ask you about it. Entrepreneurship mentality. You say you look for that. You wrote a LinkedIn post about it. And I'm just a little bit, I'm curious what you sort of meant by that, and if you can elaborate on, is that what you look for when you interview somebody?
Absolutely. I think so. Originally, when we were first in this, I was like, oh, you just need a couple of entrepreneurs, and then the rest of the team can just be a team that just support them. But when you're in the business and you see it growing, you realize that, and just before I'll pause there, you realize something, because you look at entrepreneurship mentality and you're like, okay, this isn't just, I know how to run a business. It's a mentality of creativeness and thinking outside the box in whatever you're doing. And that may sound generic, but it's so true of, okay, you can be given a job and you can just follow that job. and you'd be like, this is what I'm doing. I'm following my SOPs and I'm going to stick to it.
Yeah.
But an entrepreneurship mentality is not tearing that up straight away, but it's understanding that SOP. It's understanding the method and then thinking, right, this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to consult everyone and I'm going to think outside the box and really push this forward. And in our business in particular, we're in a very fast-paced industry. Yeah. We need that culture, not just from the top down, not just from the top, not just those, those directors making the decision on new business coming in, but down to the way our operations work, down to the way our data team work, our accounts, our brand managers. All of them need to think creatively in their own manner because they could be pushing our business in a certain area that we hadn't quite thought of before. You know, we could be going more into data. We could be going more into our fulfillment and our operations. And without that creative and kind of out of the box team, it's difficult to really push those areas.
I think it's more important in the back end than it is on the front end. And I say that because I've worked in retail and I've worked at a couple companies where if you look at their website or if you look at their just anything really from an outsider, it's flawless. It looks beautiful, pristine, well polished. And I'll use this as an example. I worked for a company that got acquired by another company. Yeah. And instead of introduce all the parent company systems into this thing and the pricing and all of that, none of it was ever migrated.
Sure.
And so the way you would get the same pricing as what it should be, it's not a discounted pricing, but you'd manually input a discount every single time.
Okay.
And that would cost people's times, efforts. They could spend more time with customers. And so, yeah, just to add to your point, I think it's whoever, and it's more important in a young business than any business. This problem persists, but like seeing people who have to do like a manual task, finding a way to automate it.
Yeah.
We talked about making yourself redundant in the previous episode, but that's kind of it. It's like if we give you a boring and mundane task or something like that, and you just do that, you're technically doing a good job. There's no problem with that. But if you find a way to automate it and go, hey, what's next? Oh God, yeah, let's move you up to the next level.
That's right. And that's the mentality you've got to have. And I mean, you spoke about a small business compared to a larger business, but one of the great stories I've heard is the Amazon Prime story. So the way the Amazon Prime, your next day delivery, the things that we all love and take for granted now, that whole subscription model of Prime was actually a thought by a average warehouse manager.
Cool.
In an Amazon FC in America.
Yeah.
And apparently it was just put through some kind of suggestion box. That's what the whole story is behind it.
Yeah.
And it was just put through that someone said, I'd love unlimited free delivery. And at the time, especially before Prime became this thing that was so common, or ASOS Premium Delivery, that was really out there. It was like, well, how are we going to afford that? How can we incorporate that? And it turns out that idea went on to be one of the biggest things in e-commerce.
Yeah.
So, it's really amazing to think how far that mentality can go. You're not just doing it for show. You're not telling, I didn't just write that LinkedIn post just to look good to everyone else. Oh yeah, look at him. He wants mini entrepreneurs in his company.
Yeah.
No, it's like, genuinely you want people that are entrepreneurs, and who knows, maybe they will go on to start their own business in the future, or maybe they'll go on to support another business in the future, or stay with us and continue to grow what we've got here. But it's just amazing to feed that mentality through, because I think that's not something you're just born with, you develop, and anyone can really develop that mentality. Sure.
Yeah. I want to ask you something, because it was a trending topic a while back, but I'm old and I forget things. Do you think everybody was born to be an entrepreneur?
Ooh.
Yeah. Everybody can be. I love that you said that. 100%. Anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur can be. There's nothing inherently stopping you from doing it, but is everybody born to be an entrepreneur?
I think entrepreneurship, the way that we see it in the world, and the way we see it glorified, like, this startup and that, it's not for everyone.
No.
I'll say that straight. Mainly because people have different priorities. People may have that they may be with a family. That's their priority in that moment. Their partner, their sports, different things are their priority in that moment. And unfortunately, running a business, some of these very large businesses, it takes up so much energy, time, and brain power. And you've really got to dedicate a lot. So it's not that priority. On the same token, what is entrepreneurship? It doesn't have to be a fancy startup company. It could be as small as just doing a side hustle. Yeah. Again, it could be that when it comes to charity work or community work, you could be adding that entrepreneurial spark to turn into a bit of a social enterprise, something that can be self-sufficient. really it's just a bit of magic dust that you could add to different things, be it a large business or a very small idea. And in that sense, I really think anyone could, and I think most people should.
Yeah.
In that respect, what do you think?
I had a very traditional mindset of entrepreneur until you just enlightened me in that very second. But I did think of the the person trying to set up a bigger company, somebody who starts small and builds and grows to something bigger. And I genuinely think that everybody is told that this could be you. And that is true. There's nothing factually incorrect about that. But I also think that people then lead on to think about, oh, well, then it should be me.
Yeah.
And I can just see that if I think about the people in my life, I can just see that being a very direct path to misery. Because like you say, they have other priorities.
Yeah.
They love spending time with their families, their friends, and all of that stuff. And even if it doesn't take up your time, you're right, it takes up your mental capacity, your energy, because so many more things are your responsibility than if you had a job.
Yeah.
That job might be much harder and it might be a lot more intensive, but there are certain responsibilities that no longer lie with you. You're not the one concerned if everybody gets paid next month. You're not the one concerned with bills getting paid and whether there's a better way of doing this and but again, all of those things that I just said are worries. To some people, they're exciting. They're like, I want to work on that. I want to do that. That's where I think those are the people who want to be entrepreneurs. But I think there is a unhealthy thing of making it so desirable that people think they should be doing it.
Sure.
To the point where,
You're right. Yeah, we have glamorized entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
We see these tech entrepreneurs and the billionaires out there, and often people think, yeah, that's what I want, so I'm just going to get there.
Yeah.
And that's great. You have to have a goal or a mindset. Probably try and take away the monetary expectation from that. Sure. Because, that's just not healthy. But it's great to have some kind of goal. Yeah, maybe I do want to run my own tech company at one point. Of course you need that. Everyone needs that. I've had that from day one. Yeah. But on the same token, there's a difference between setting a goal and continuously just thinking about that and forgetting where you are at the moment and your present.
Yeah.
And what I see time and time again with entrepreneurs or people that I speak to messaging me, they're like, hey Ash, I want to start a business. And it's great. It's a great point and a starting point. But they're already thinking about where they're going to be. Yeah. Which, again, great to have a goal. But they're forgetting how they're going to, what path they're going to go down to get there. And that's fine. And you're not meant to know the exact path that you go down. It changes all the time. Sure. But the issue here is they forget to realize that dots connect to get to where they want to be. Yeah. And they get caught up in the little things that aren't going their way, which everyone knows entrepreneurship is tough. You got to eat some shit for a bit and do all of that. But they lose hope. And I'll need to clarify my thoughts, and maybe we can talk about this in another episode on this bit. But it's a really interesting thing I'm seeing of you've got to kind of believe that the dots will connect together and things will work out. The little thing, pick up the phone, speaking to different people, networking out there. And I use networking lightly because I hate that term, but true, but it's huge. It's huge, right? Yeah, speaking to people, giving them your free time. Like if you've got a bit of an evening, talk to more people, find out new areas, learn. But people are often, again, thinking about that and they're like, oh, but I'm not running this company yet, so I'm not going to make it. But they don't realize all those little things that they're doing are leading up to where they're going to be. And whilst entrepreneurship became the cool thing in the last couple of years, which I absolutely love, I even put, again, a LinkedIn post about that. Sure, yeah. I am seeing that this was a negative impact where we had too many people just thinking of where they were, or where they wanted to be, and getting upset that they weren't there yet. Yeah, I think you raised two very interesting points that I want to go into. Firstly is the dots. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a big goal that the dots lead to. Sometimes you find along the first, second, and third dot, you start to find the bigger picture. And I want to quickly mention the Wandering Bee, which is a candle company some friends of mine from university set up. And we work in e-commerce. We don't work in the industry, so it wasn't like a sales pitch to them, but it was just like, hey, a couple of things on your Shopify site that I think you can improve. Yeah. And I've been working with them for a couple of weeks now, and I love working with them. I didn't have any monetary expectation. I didn't have anything like that, but it's made me think I'd love to do consulting for startups. Sure. Absolutely would love to do that. It was never on my mind in the beginning. It's something you brought to my attention. That's just something I wanted to quickly mention. It's an amazing thing, and you were only able to kind of grow those thoughts and realize the potential you had because you took the opportunity to speak to them and give them that, that free advice and that free
Yeah, and it's sharpened me up
Yeah.
for like client work. And oddly enough, I've started doing it for potential clients, like auditing their sites and stuff. I'm about to submit something for somebody we're about to work with to Ollie so he can present it along with the rest of the pitch deck. The second thing that you touched on was monetary goals. And I want to know your thoughts about this, right? Do you think the ambition to run a small to medium-sized business is a bit dead? Do you think people are too blinded by like, I want to be the next Jeff Bezos, to the point where they never start because they might just end up, working a company that turns over 50K, 100K?
Yeah, completely.
I think about this a lot, and I was just curious where your head's at. Like,
no, it's a great point. So the thing is, entrepreneurship seems attractive to everyone. They're like, it's a life I can't live. I'm out of my 9 to 5. It's great. But if you really think about it, and let's take a business as this kind of scale, right? Yeah. And I'm going from this side for those on the camera. You've got the lovely cream here. We're talking the Jeff Bezos kind of cream here, and then down to like even the millionaires and all of that area here. Yeah. But when you really think about business, that is like the 1% of business.
Sure. Yeah.
The 1% of entrepreneurs get to that level.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. The small to medium-sized ones don't seem that attractive, because when you really go down to the calculations of it, and you're like, my time, my effort, I'm putting in 60 to 80-hour weeks, certainly at the start, and you're spending your weekends there and things like that. You're actually on less than minimum wage for a long time, you know, and not far less actually. You're actually not making that much because you've got to pay your staff. You've got to scale. Yeah. You often see me doing a thing, and I'm like, yeah, but we've got to do this, and then we can do the next thing. We've got to reinvest everything we're making into this to go to the next thing. And that's, unfortunately, that means you are sacrificing your profitability or your monetary gain in the short term. Yeah. So if we really take this 99% of stuff, if you break it down into individual calculations, it's not attractive at all. Yeah. Any job out there pretty much would be more attractive than what you get in monetary gain here. But the thing that people miss out on is, and I'm not there yet in terms of like understanding if it will happen or not, but I have this true belief, if we are just thinking from a monetary point of view, which we know isn't our only goal, but from a monetary point of view, that if the real successful 1% are those that just hung in there a little bit longer, and they were hanging in there a little bit longer than everyone else, and it's exponential in terms of Jeff Bezos went from, absolutely nothing, Amazon not being a profitable business at all, to being at the top. But there are so many multimillionaires, millionaires, even very other wealthy people out there that kept going, and they were able to see things scale from that point. So that's really, I hope that's kind of
absolutely. I was also more thinking along the lines of how they say perfection is the biggest enemy of great, and that people want something to be perfect so bad that they never start, or that they're too afraid to start. And I always wondered, like, the freelance photographer who bills, 50K a year, expenses like 20K, but they're doing what they loved. But just because another job offers 31K rather than the 30K they'd get from being a photographer or cinematographer or baker, whatever it might be, because they think, I'll never be the next Gales, which is a bakery that, I don't know why I chose Gales. I just didn't want to say Greg's, but which is a bakery that, turns over a healthy amount of money, or, you could open up like an independent shop and do all those things. When you think, I'll never make it to that size, you might never do that. But in actual fact, that prospect might be quite appealing. And like you say, it's exponential, but I would also argue the nicer part of it is unlimited. Show me any start of any career and I'll tell you where the salary cap is. Sure. Right? Whereas the output is directly related to your input when it comes to a business. You can work twice as hard, maybe not earn twice the salary, but you will earn more and more money. Yeah. Whereas, it's very different in a job. And again, that's not to make one sound more appealing than the other, because like we just said, structure also can be very appealing to some people because it allows them to plan their time, plan their future. Sure. Yeah. But those are two very different things. That
do you think the penny dropped for you at some point where you realised there was this shift? Because I'm not sure. We've never actually spoken. Did you always want to run or be part of a company at the top, or? Well,
I always wanted to run a company, not for financial reasons, just because I was never really happy in a job. So yeah, I've always liked the idea of working on multiple different things, and we did discuss this at length once, but having an actual impact on how things are done. Sure. I like working on systems rather than working on things, processes and stuff like that. From a monetary aspect, I think it's Robert Kiyosaki that says this, but a job is a very temporary solution to a very permanent problem. Right, you'll always need money, but a job is just very temporary. You work until your body allows you to work.
Right.
And so I don't think a job should be a primary source of income, or like an only source of income. I don't have my other assets, as he calls them in his book, but I'm working towards them. So the money aspect of things, I've always had the mentality of, like, it's not a 1 in, 1 out kind of, or 1 in 50 out, because life is expensive.
Yeah.
1 in 50 out kind of a situation. It would be nice to have this as big as possible, but yeah, look for other things. If money is your goal, look for other things rather than just a job. And that's why I've always set up like small side businesses that sometimes fail, sometimes don't.
So okay, without trying to get too deep, because I know Ram's got another question
he does.
in his back pocket, but we'll see if we can get to that. I do a lot of thinking randomly here and there, and I start to think about, like, what are we doing here? But I'm trying to not get too deep where it's like, what is our purpose, all that, but what are we doing here? Like, what's our goal? Why were we tuned to say that, okay, you need to keep earning until you go? You've often said that you've now got quite a healthy relationship with money in the sense of the way you treat it. Could you go into a bit more of that and what you mean by that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, well, I used to live in London, and I used to spend more than I make, because I think that's how it starts off for everybody in London. Yeah. You can work hard and you can shift that equilibrium in your favor. But the fact of the matter is, I was spending more than, and I wasn't like living a lavish lifestyle. I didn't wear fancy designer clothes. I didn't do all of those things. I just ended up spending more because living there was so expensive, and my job wasn't paying me. It was paying me pretty decently, but it wasn't paying me that much. And so my overall net worth, so to speak, was just generally trickling down. Yeah. And I hated that. But I also hated that I was, my parents made a lot of sacrifices to get me to this stage. Sure. And I hated that they'd put themselves through all of that for me to be accruing debt. I really hated that. But now I live in the Midlands, which is, a lot cheaper. And I feel like as long as certain things are heading in the right direction, I'm happy. I used to feel guilty about every lunch out I ate because I'm like, that should be going into a savings account. And that's what I think I had an unhealthy relationship with money.
It's the whole thing of stop having a coffee, make your own coffee.
Right. A house is only 100 lattes away. Fuck off to the people who say that. But yeah, it was that. It was a bit of a burden on me. But now, a huge credit to my sister for this. We sat down and it was like, I'm going to admit fully how bad I am with money to you. And I showed her everything that I spent money on. And I was like, please help me. You're good at this. Please teach me. Yeah. And that was the best thing I've ever done. Yeah. She looked at it and she was just like, I mean, sure, you're an idiot, but like, it's not terrible. She was like, you're an idiot, but it's not terrible. Yeah. It could be a lot worse. But what she mainly taught me, and I will teach you to be rich by insert title here, Ram. I'll send you the author. His book is fantastic in that he says just automate everything. So now I have an automatic direct debit to like a savings account. Yep. Thanks to you, although I know you don't like to take credit, I bought some Bitcoin. And I'm looking at...
Which, by the way, is not investment advice.
It's not investment advice in the slightest, but we will spend a whole episode talking about it. But as long as those things are going in that direction, suddenly spending money on a latte is not a problem. It was the fact that I was spending money and not doing anything there because I'm like, I'll get to it later, or whatever. Yeah. And that's what I mean by a healthy relationship. I allow myself to have fun now because I am doing the other stuff. And it's automatic. I would never actually do it if I did it manually. If I had to make a manual payment into a savings account every month, I'd never do it. I'd say I'll do it next month. And that's my relationship with money. Yeah. I'm very curious. Sorry, Ram, I know you got another question. I'm very curious about what your relationship with money is.
Yeah, I mean, just before I get into that, it's really nice what you just said there, because you're almost, when it's automatic, you're almost paying yourself in the future. Like you're putting that couple £100 or whatever, different savings account, all of that, you're putting it into the future and you're allowing it to grow as well. And it's a really nice kind of outlook on saving.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are forgetting in the world, and for good reason as well. I mean, my outlook on money is always changing. And it's evolving, but I've always, I mean, even since I was a kid, I've always been, and you speak to my parents, I've been like an avid saver.
Really?
Like, yeah, just like I'll try and hold back, or I'll try and keep as much. And they would often laugh at me, like, gosh, buy that CD or buy that CD. I'll tell you what a CD is later on.
Please do, yeah. I thought you meant what CD.
I won't say that.
No, okay.
But yeah, little things like that I was always very conscious about. What started to bother me was that we weren't being rewarded for our saving, and I'll hold back how far I'll get with this.
Okay, cool, because I have a bit of a rant about this too. But go on.
But like, you're not getting rewarded for saving. I was thinking in a savings account. I remember I was like 14, right, and I was going to my building society that I left because like that was terrible.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this was straight after the it was around the.
I pictured like someone coming, like, because 14, right? Someone's knocking on your door, like, Ash, do you want to come out and play? And you're like suiting up.
Yeah.
And you're just like, sorry, I have a meeting with my society.
And they weren't taking me. No, they were taking me seriously.
Yeah.
I'd give my birthday money in there, put all of that stuff. Gathered a decent amount for a kid.
Yeah.
And I'd go to this building society. This was 2009, so I was 14 there.
Yeah.
And I remember this specifically because I went into this building society. Again, I don't want to get too economical, but these interest rates are all-time lows.
Yeah.
And I remember going in, I had my money in the account, and it was on a stamp book.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, if you tie it in for 3 years, we'll give you something like 1.5%. And at 14, even at 14, I was fuming. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not tying it up for 3 years. I'm going to be almost ready to drive. But I need to afford a car, like all of this stuff. I'm not tying my money in.
Yeah.
And it got me really angry about how our world today doesn't incentivize people to save.
Yeah.
You have to almost work for, keeping your money safe. And I'll say this again, but I just feel like in the world we live in today, you have to work twice for the money you earn.
Yeah.
Once when you put the hours in to earn the money, and the second time to preserve the value of your money. Like you say, you've got to put it in a savings account, but one that actually gives you more than inflation and stuff. And that's kind of, it's not my opinion on money. I don't think I quite answered the question you're going for, but this is the way I look at things that,
No, it's very interesting. I wanted to make a point about savings because I'm very anti-saving. Mm-hmm. I'm very pro-saving with a purpose.
Yep.
So I'm saving to buy a house, hopefully, and I have plans of when I'll reach that stage.
Yeah.
But that's the only reason I'm saving. When I was younger, I saved to buy a go-kart or to buy a camera or whatever it was. I only like to save with intention because at some point, it might have even been you that told me this, of just like inflation will reduce the value more than the interest will raise the value. So by default, you're at a net loss in a couple of years, which is just terrible. But like with big picture thinking, you're like, I can't do that. Thing is though, I'm not gonna because to some extent investing is gambling, and so I can't invest until the point some money gets invested, sure. But I can't invest until I'm ready to buy a house. I'm just gonna save so I can buy a house. But yeah, I would far more recommend investing than saving or saving with a purpose.
I completely agree. And it's so easy to say it when you're not actually doing it yourself, or you're not actively contributing and talking about someone else. But it's hard, there's a risk preference. Everyone's got their own risk preference and tolerance on what they're ready to do. So you've got to find that healthy medium between obviously keeping money in savings all the way down to what you're willing to put into probably higher risk categories. All I'd say on that part is, and unfortunately, again, I have a lot that I love about this world, but there's a lot that needs to be fixed up, is the fact that, you're saving for a house and your interest is giving you 1%, 2%, whatever it's giving you max. But house prices are going up by 15%, 20% in some cases, certainly through the pandemic. So suddenly what you're able to buy, let's say you could buy like a room in a house with the money you have now. Like you could buy a house, right? Let's say a house, yeah?
Sure.
But let's say you just want to buy a room in that house. In a couple of years, because of compounding growth rates, you'll only be able to buy a quarter of that room. Or I think with the same money that you had. So yes, you're keeping it in a less risky thing by keeping it in cash, but your spending power from that money has gone down immensely. And this is the bit that gets me, that you've put that hard-earned effort, that's been your time, into that money, and then it's slowly depleting, and all that hard-earned cash is just being taken away from you. And it's indirect tax, but again, I could talk about this for hours. So yeah, on that side. But anyway, if I just quickly delve into the question you gave me initially, which is what's my opinion on money as a whole, I have changed. Well, I've evolved my mentality that over time, that money. I went through this phase of like, oh, I don't need money. You know, money is evil. All of that stuff. Yeah. To actually, money gives you opportunity to make change, but it also gives you power in the world. And I don't mean power like, oh, I'm going to change, like, destroy the world or whatever. I mean like the opportunity to do things and make real change, and it opens doors. You've got to have that healthy balance. You know, it's not about having a lavish lifestyle necessarily, unless you're into that. But the idea of creating wealth and making sure that you're set up for life is really important to having a happier life and opening yourself up to more opportunity.
No, I love what you said there, and I realised, Ram, don't worry, we're going to skip the last question. We'll answer that in the next episode, because I realise it's been 35 minutes and Ram's looking at me like, I've got to edit this, right? So we'll skip that question and we'll move on. I had something to say about that, in that, yes, I agree, I 100% agree, but I think money has the power to do so much more than people think that it can. Like, I think the default is like, if I have more money, I can have a nicer house, nicer car, nicer things. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but if you just spend 20 minutes on social media, you'll realize the majority of people are like that.
Yeah.
What the things I've spoken to you about and heard from you has really sort of opened my eyes to the bigger opportunity with money. And you talk about like bigger power and influence. Some of the things you talk about are about improving the community that you grew up in. You talk about bringing over a particular brand of, I'm just going to say brand, into Leicester to hopefully attract more young people here, because you believe in this city. You really like this city. Yeah. And that, I'm like, I think if more people realize the opportunity with money, because people always say like money doesn't buy you happiness. Sure, but that's got to, if you contribute something positive to your community, it's got to bring some level of fulfillment, right? Yeah.
And that's true, and exactly, and money doesn't bring you happiness, right? But there are things that do bring you happiness in the world, and money can sometimes, in some cases, be the way to get towards that happiness. Like you say, doing a project that you've always believed in, but you've never had the opportunity or the infrastructure to do. Yeah, I'm very, very much into that, and I think you've got to have a bigger picture, because if you're just chasing that new car, that new house you can put into its own category, because you may think of your family and things like that. Sure. But certainly nice things, a nicer watch, all of that stuff. You often put so much expectation and hope that will make you happy, right? That you'll get there, and then you get there and it doesn't feel that great, and then you just set yourself up for more misery until you pick a new target that you're aiming for, and you will be unhappy until you get there. Yeah. And it's never ending. You're on that classic thing that everyone says of a hamster wheel. That's just never ending. Yeah. It's
genuinely a huge fear of mine in that, because most of my goals sort of revolved around things like that. Like, I drive a fucked up old Astra at the moment, and it's never my ambition to drive that car forever. I'm thankfully in a position where I could start looking at some nicer cars. I shouldn't. It's a bad financial move, but I'm like, in the long term, I've then started to think about dream cars. I love to window shop on Auto Trader. Yeah. It's genuinely a hobby of mine. And I do look at these cars, and I look at the price tag. Like, let's say some of the cars that are very appealing to me is like a 3 Series. BMW 3 Series, a Mercedes C, not really C-Class, but let's say the 3 Series. And I think what a modest model year is 2015, 2016, not to the point where you buy brand new and lose a lot of money.
Sure.
That'll cost about £20,000 to £21,000. And the thing that's been really scary to me, even though I've never had it, and I've never parted ways with so much money for something so nice, is that lingering what if? Yeah. What if it doesn't bring me £21,000 worth of happiness? Yeah. Because then it's just a mathematical thing of I'm not getting the return on my £20,000. Yeah. I'm not getting £20,000 worth of happiness.
I don't think you could ever do that with anything, to be honest. You can never expect that same level of happiness, because what is £21,000 worth of happiness? I guarantee you, knowing you and loving cars, that one day, whenever you get that car that you like, you will thoroughly enjoy it.
Sure.
That's like, I have no doubt in that. No doubt in my mind that will happen. But it's that continuous chase that's the part that people forget. You know, like once you've got that 3 series or whatever you have, you're already looking at the next one, and you're looking at that's the bit that you've got to almost be wary of. So it's not a bad trait to want nice things.
Yeah.
But you've got to appreciate what you do have then eventually, rather than continue to chase. But do what you want with your money. At the end of the day, it's everyone's money. They can do what they want, but it won't guarantee that level of happiness going through. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's just something I've been thinking about a lot, in that, like, yeah, like I of course I really like nice things. The way I talk about money almost makes it seem like I don't want money, or I don't care about money, when in actual fact I absolutely do. And I do care about all of these nice things. I've just really been thinking like deeper into it, of like, like you say, and then what? Can you imagine, what am I going to do for the rest of my life if I go and buy the car I really like in 2 weeks time, and get that house? Like, what else? I get so...
And without trying to make everyone turn into a philosopher, my opinion on things is just to have some kind of purpose of what you're really aiming for, and it can change. You know, like you say, I want to turn the Midlands into a really nice hub or a community, you know, with really cool stuff here. You know, it becomes the next London. Who knows? Yeah. But I mean, that's not my goal forever. You know, maybe I'll move on to something else than that. But I feel those kinds of ambitions lead to much better happiness and fulfillment. Yeah.
Well, man, I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat. We are coming up to 41 minutes.
Episode 3.
Episode 3.
This one will be when we go live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. We're going everywhere.
Everywhere. First 3 episodes going live everywhere, then released weekly, provided we actually make the time. Because this is being shot 1 day late.
Yeah.
So we will make the time. I think,
we will.
For that
was my fault this week, but it was needed.
Oh, we were both in it at that meeting. That's fine.
But no, thanks, Ram.
Thank you, Ram. It's good to have you back.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Like, subscribe, follow through whatever the mediums allow you to. We love you, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Take it easy.